Unit 4, Lesson 3, Imagery Effectiveness and Goal Setting. After this presentation, we should be able to identify what imagery effectiveness is, identify what goal setting is, explain how imagery effectiveness can improve an athlete's performance, and explain how goal setting can either improve or inhibit an athlete's performance. We'll begin by looking at imagery. Using all the senses to recreate an experience in the mind. It's like a form of mental practice, and it's important to involve as many of the senses as possible. At first, athletes will most likely focus on the skill, the goal, and the performance in competition. But eventually, athletes can learn to use all their senses when recreating a situation, when creating imagery about an upcoming event. And so it's important to keep encouraging yourself to imagine not only the look and feel of it, but the noises, the smells, what you hear, and what you can feel, what you observe happening around you. So where and when should you practice imagery? Well, it should not be practiced during a game. Um, Learning during stressful times, learning during actual game situations can be very difficult as your body's in like a fight or fight mode. Um, so you want to be sure, and the majority of the research backs this up, that using imagery during practice sessions rather than during competition, it's usually more helpful. And so coaches and athletes alike should concentrate on teaching imagery during practice situations so it can be transferred to a competitive situation, to a competition. Why is imagery, like participation imagery effectiveness, why is it important? Well, proper visualization of any kind of goal, any kind of practice, any kind of athletic event can help you control your emotions and your activation levels are what gets you ready to play. Not only that, it helps build self-confidence in your abilities within the given sport, within the task. And imagery plays both motivational and cognitive roles in modifying your behavior. If you're prone to negative behavior, proper imagery can help you circumvent those negative aspects of your behavior, help you get around it. It can be specific towards a specific act or event, or it could be general towards a given situation of your sport. Proper imagery also helps enhance your psychological skills, your concentration, your motivation, your confidence, your emotional and arousal responses to stressful situations. And it even enhances sports skills. You can acquire, practice, and correct sports skills with proper imagery. It can even help you cope with pain and injury. So it's very useful for injured athletes who are trying to work their way back or for athletes who are trying to break bad habits. Looking at the nature of imagery, positive imagery is mostly reported during practice and pre-competition, like pre-game situations. That's the best use of positive imagery is helping get yourself mentally prepared and locked in before any type of athletic event. Negative imagery is mostly reported during competition. During the routine, you're focusing on not failing. This is imagery that creates a lot of anxiety. Negative imagery that directs attention to irrelevant factors, to things that actually aren't important to yourself competing right now. And it also leads itself to imagery that's not controllable. Any type of athletic event, you're competing against other people. You can only control yourself. You can only control, even on your team, you can control your actions for the team concept or your actions in this competition. You can't control other people. And negative imagery has a habit of putting negative thoughts in our head during competition because we can't control other aspects of the competition. This helps lead to an athlete to imagine failing for various reasons or mistakes. And also, the last aspect of negative imagery is imagery that makes the athlete overconfident. You ever have where you come out to an event and you hit your first couple of shots, or if you're a pitcher, you struck out the first couple of batters you're facing, or things are just going really easy in the beginning. That can set up a bit of overconfidence in an athlete, and that creates like a self-cascading fall of negative imagery where once something positive for the other team happens, then the athlete can tend to view it as a psychological situation that they can't overcome now because they've built up so much overconfidence from the early bit of their competition. When looking at imagery and trying to gain a perspective on imagery, there's two types of imagery we should focus on, internal and external. Internal imagery is where you see yourself as if you have a camera on your head. Um, Some argue that the situation increases performance as it is more specific and accurate with real life situations. External imagery is when you see yourself from a perspective of an outside observer. This is more commonly used. It's where you see yourself like as a third party to what you're actually doing. There's no conclusive research on which perspective is better for the performance of athletes. It's just how you are able to visualize, how you are able to process the information that you're trying to process. Regardless of the sport you're playing or the athletic event that you're trying to participate in, there are numerous factors that affect the effectiveness of the imagery. One is the nature of the tasks. When you're in a solo sport, the good outcome because you have more control over the situations itself versus a team sport. The second factor is the skill level of the performer. Imagery is useful for learning new skills as a novice, but experienced performers use imagery more often for refining their skills because they already have the basic skills down. They're already competent in the basic abilities of whatever their sport is, running or throwing a football, shooting a basketball, kicking a soccer ball, things like that. They have the basics down. Imagery for them is used to fine tune the aspects of their sport. Third is the imaging ability, that the quality of the images that you're trying to produce in your mind gets better the more you practice it. And lastly is using imagery along with physical skills practice. So the best practice is when you use proper imagery and visualization as one of your tools in psychological skills training to help you physically perform better within that sport. And how to apply imagery. So you should practice it. You should practice it in many different settings, not just the same kind of setting, not just while you're stretching or getting ready before a game. You should practice positive imagery before bed, at the rink, during practice, during lunches, pre-competition settings. Relax before practicing imagery. It's really important that you're in a positive state of mind before trying to practice positive imagery before a match or event. Avoid any of the negative beliefs and negative self-talk about imagery. That's prone to creep in. Oh, I don't know if this is going to work. Why am I wasting my time on this? Those kind of things. Try to avoid that and staying positive. It's best to use vivid imagery that you can control. So, if you're 5'4" and you're playing JV basketball, you're not going to imagine yourself dunking over their whole team and their starting center. If you're coming in as the point guard, it's not a chance you're going to be elevating above the rim. Likewise, if you're a defensive tackle in football, it's not likely you're covering their star receiver and intercepting a pass and going 90 yards for a pick six touchdown to win the game. Try to make the images that you're projecting controllable images, things that are likely to happen. So how do you do that? You start small. Picture simple things that help you get the hang of what you're doing, your basic technique. You could even start with how you're going to look before the first play of the game, where you're going to line up, things that you can control. very small details. That helps you apply the imagery to specific situations or skills and uses the imagery in situations that can typically cause you a lot of stress. Like if you're really anxious at the tip off of a basketball game or first pitch of a baseball or softball game, using your imagery there to understand where you're going to line up, what your body position is going to be, how are you positioned relative to the rest of your team. All of those factors can help quiet the stressors that normally happen before a game. So next, let's look at goal setting. For goal setting, there's two main types of goals. The first is objective goals. This is a desire to attain a specific standard on a task within a specific time frame. You might, if you're a basketball player, you might say you want to dunk a basketball by the age of 15. And if you're a baseball player, you want to be able to throw 85 miles per hour by the age of 16. Or if you're a runner, you want to run a sub 5 mile by the age of 17. So objective goals are things that have a clear stated goal, right? There's no ambiguity there. There's no mystery. Subjective goals are different. Those are general statements of intent that are things you can't measure. They're not quantifiable. So one example of a subjective goal is you want to do well this season. Well, there's no way to tell what doing well is. You just know you want to do well. You want to play well. You want your team to play well. Um, those are subjective. You can't really measure that. So within both objective and subjective goals, you can learn to do them by having short-term goals or long-term goals. And so goal setting can follow this SMART acronym of having specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound goals. All of those can help kind of keep you as an athlete on track. Um, again, both individual or collective goals within your team. If you follow this SMART guide, it can kind of help you keep you on track and going towards a predetermined goal. And those short-term goals tend to be performance goals and process goals. We're going to get into the specifics of those. Whereas those long-term goals typically are outcome goals, how you want and how you think the season overall is going to go. Right. So looking specifically at those types of goals, for outcome goals in sports and exercise focus on achieving a victory in a competitive contest. That could be winning a race or earning a medal, even as simple as stopping an opponent from succeeding, shutting down an opponent. So each of those outcome goals are all results based. They're dependent upon what's happening during the event. Performance goals differ. Performance goals focus on achieving standards based on your own previous performances. So that's improving week to week, improving day to day, even, and certainly improving on your own performance throughout a season. So that's improving on one's own sprint or race times, raising your points per game, rebounding per game, lowering your ERA for baseball and softball pitchers, things like that. Those are internal results based performance goals, and they differ from athlete to athlete. The last goal, process goals, they focus on the actions an individual must engage in during performance to execute or perform well. That involves improving in self-efficacy, cognitive anxiety, even confidence and motivational load and factors. Those process goals can help you achieve various performance goals and then help you achieve the outcome goals you're striving for. See, it all begins with understanding the process to help improve your performance and get better outcomes. Right? So, in short, for imagery effectiveness and proper goal setting, set a goal, make a plan, get to work, stick to it, and eventually, with enough repetition and some skill, let's be honest, it'll help you reach your goals.